So, Bob, since I have you here, and since we have given a lot already, do you have an abstract for your piece, a brief abstract? And we can blame Jim for me asking that question. I'm being very hardcore asking everyone because it seems to be one of the best things we can have to help people navigate the book.
What's the maximum word limit for the abstracts and the bios?
Okay.
Is there a word count limit?
Open the PDF that I sent you, please. And if you look at the table of contents there, hang on, if you look, for instance, on the table of contents, you will see under Lorenzo's entry, he has gems. That's the name of his presentation. And then he has a line and a third, maybe. And that's something similar I think I'll do for you, Peter. Hang on, let me just do that without just talking.
Let's see, I see we have the title of my talk there already. I'll have a couple paragraphs for you later today.
Yeah, I can send an abstract.
Very good. Like literally a sentence or two. Let me just share the screen here and show you guys how it appears currently. You can all see that, right?
Yep.
So what I'm doing, it's a little bit of a hack. But if you see here for, and it's at the bottom of the page, which is annoying, but you see bottom left says Lorenzo, right? So his title is Gems, and I put as a subtitle, whatever he had as the subtitle. And I'm also trying to do the same with Peter, putting it all together as the title. And then I deleted your hyphen and made it Interface Affordances as the subtitle.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because then I'll have a few sentences to stick after that.
Excellent. No, not in here. Because if you look
And
at
I'll email it to you as an author document.
Yeah, but if you look at this screen, right? If you look at yours, so the way that I think it should be, a relatively short title, that's one line, and you have that. But then the subtitle, I have made that Interface Affordances subtitle / abstract. This is really a suggestion, and I'm wondering what you guys think. Is that a good way of doing it? So it's all listed in the table of contents.
I'd say yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So I sent out an angry email to everybody just now, as you may have seen already. So we'll see. A lot of it's missing. But, that's academics for you, right? And I don't know if Mark will be here today, but he has been working on our timeline, putting that in JSON, something Fabian will talk about. He's going to be late today. We had our Queen's funeral today, so it's kind of a heavy day over here, you see. We ended up watching it at home on the
Oh,
was that muted for a lot of that? I was
I heard you.
Okay, I must have pressed the button afterwards then. Anyway, Bob, how are you doing with getting someone to help you set up the headset?
I'm getting a friend. We
Yeah.
haven't got a schedule yet.
Yeah, I look forward to that, and we should, we have these pages here where we have these resources. So the mural that Brandel made for you is already, well, for us, off the mural is in there, and a few other things. You can
Good.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that difficult to set up, actually, as long as it's charged. You basically put it on your head, put the controllers in your hands, and it's got a trigger that you click to say okay to things. And you either have to decide to use a Facebook account or to make a new headset only account. That's about it, really.
Well, I haven't charged it. Sorry, this conference comes at meal time at breakfast time for me. I will only be here for an hour today, as usual.
Yeah, we'll see who comes in. Other than begging for these abstracts and bios and stuff, what else should we talk about before we're in fuller group?
Proto, let me ask before we do that, are you hoping that I will be submitting a paper also?
I'm quite neutral on you. I think you said you didn't feel ready, but if you would like to, I would be very happy. So no pressure.
Good. I've been thinking about something as short as four pages.
4 pages is actually towards the long end in this context.
Really? Okay.
So it really varies a lot, but yeah, if you want to do that, you're absolutely welcome. And by Friday, I need to know exactly who is presenting, so that I can do the final schedule. It's been when you ask really interesting people, they tend to be busy and not reply with any urgency, you know, not perfect.
What is the time frame for it?
The time frame is the bio and abstract deadline is tomorrow. because
No, the conference.
The conference is on the 27th and 28th next week.
Yeah,
And
I've got that in my calendar, but I don't have any times.
that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
I need to have I need to have a clue what's going to happen, because I can't make an organized list yet, but it will start at 9 o'clock, 9:45 UK time and finish at 5. So it'll be very, very early for you guys.
But not a problem for some of us.
That
No, no
would-
problem there.
Yeah, it would be great if you can make that. That is for both days. And I'm not sure about the exact breaks and the schedule for the second day, but I'll share a screen. I don't have that much on that week, so I can just share it anyway. So you can see here, we have this obviously I'm not going to have Jim that day. I can delete that. Yeah, delete. Right. So coffee outside optional, a brief introduction, and then we have the first sessions, 1, 2, 3, 15-minute coffee break, another 3, 1 hour lunch, and another session, bum. And then we have a longer coffee break, and we have Jaron Lanier when he's awake, closing discussions. And for those who are there physically, we get a tour of the Linnaean collection. The next day, I don't know when we will start. It may be later, but you know, these are easy things to move around until I get all the names, all the abstracts, all the details. Yeah. So also, Bob, thank you for the email with the questions about time. Time is really difficult. And yesterday, Mark and I spent 2.5 hours discussing some of this graph stuff, what to put in and so on. We simplified it a lot and we removed time. It's just too much for us to even conceptually build on right now. Because it's, you know, every time you start adding something, it seems it becomes one of those, put as many tags as you want in as many categories, make it a complete mess, then you change your mind about something later and it's just nonsense. Something we need to get, you know, away from. So we're going to wait until we have more time for time, so to speak. Oh, you have a hand up, Peter, sorry. Yes, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you think in Author we could set things up so that the concepts have a globally unique identifier associated with them, so that it'd be possible to borrow a concept from someone else's document and know that the concept that I copied from your document is the same concept that you had in your document, so that when we start getting a whole bunch of author created documents together, we can do conceptual links across documents?
Yeah, we've thought about that, about using, visual metacopying and all that stuff, but I think I'm actually against it. Because the concepts in reader and author are really the perspectives of that particular human who wrote the document. There is no pretense of a full definition. You can, of course, still cite it and refer to it, but I think it would be less useful if someone can just copy the concepts across, because then they take their own thinking out of it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that.
It's kind of difficult to decide how much the system should do and how much the human should do in order to deal with their knowledge. I read the history of the ballpoint pen today, which was quite fascinating and relevant to us, because there was a guy, John Lauman, something like that, an American, who actually invented it first, the ballpoint pen. But he invented it, he was a bit of a cattle guy, he invented it to write on leather and things, so it's really kind of a rough device that never really took off. And then there was the Hungarian guy, Biro, who invented it later. That became a success, but it was expensive. And then another guy, Bic, who made it commercial. So Biro and Bic, I keep thinking it's the same person. But the point of the story is, we talk about the different substrates. The fact that one of the most, the Bic ballpoint pen sells 57 pieces every second. But it only became commercially viable once it had the right substrate. Isn't that kind of interesting?
Mhm. Yeah.
And the discussion that's been going via email about the dangers or ill effects of using VR are, of course, very real. But like I was talking to Peter just before you guys arrived, you'd also get motion sickness if you walk around working on your laptop, staring at the screen. And that's not me trying to say it's not an issue. Of course it's an issue. So it's our job to find out what works and what doesn't. Even personally myself, those games where you use the joystick to move around in VR, that makes me very queasy very quickly.
Well, when I do get a headset, I don't want it to be something that's going to be sitting in a box on shelf. I want it to be something where I'm actually going to be using as part of my regular daily workflow. And we're not quite there yet, but hopefully we'll be getting an Apple announcement one of these days.
The developer version is rumored to be available October, so very soon. Very, very soon. But I agree with you from a logical point of view, but my concern is by the time Apple has its headset out, it's game over mostly. Just like the Mac invented, or rather pressed upon us Command X for copy, cut, and Command V for paste and all of that stuff. Whatever Apple does for their first headset is going to, in many ways, set how we use VR headsets in stone. That's why we need to invent this before they come out with it. We're only going to have this naive opportunity once in our lifetime, and it's about to disappear. Jim, what do you hope to get out of the event?
Listening to the direction of the future.
You mean to the desired direction of the future?
Well, kind of what it involves, what its possibilities are. I have my long-term objectives are probably somewhat different than this group. But the real question in my mind will be, how does what the symposium talks about affect those long-term interests?
Okay. I mean, the intention of that is quite simply, okay, just brief back history. I used to be a big Mac guy. I still kind of am. But when I was in university in the 90s, Syracuse, upstate New York, I had this thing of, oh my gosh, Mac and Windows are both bad. And that started me on this path. The point is I then needed to find the people before the WYSIWYG interface, before all of this stuff, because I was so brainwashed into that was the way. So that's how I learned about Doug and Ted and everyone else, primarily through Howard Rheingold. So what I'm hoping now is that we really get to note down lots of different perspectives of what can be. Of course, others are doing this too, but I think, we have kind of an obligation to do that. Because in a year, once some of these more advanced systems are out, there's going to be, this is the reality. How do you unthink? It's really, really hard to unthink something and unlearn something, right? So I really hope that what we write, to answer your question directly, maybe can be used in a year or many years for people to look back, and we will be one of the sources to say it could be different.
Hello, Brandel.
Hi, Brando.
There he is. Hello.
Morning.
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 We're just talking a little bit about the hoped reason for the symposium and the book and the hoped impact. Jim was just asking, and I just mentioned that we're only going to have one opportunity to have virgin thoughts. Once these systems are built, very much of how we think about it will be dictated by the reality of it. So I think that's why it's so important for us to get down on paper as many perspectives as we can now. That's it. Hey, Fabian.
Hello, hello.
So now that we have both of you guys here, I think it would be really useful today if we can go through what we actually have to show next week, primarily the amazing mural stuff that we've seen. If we can go through like a running order of what VR presentations we have, is that cool? Because we have quite a few things, but I need to know what you all think about what should be, hang on, shown. So this is the one you built, Fabian. I've done some globe tests, etc. Any comments on that?
For me, that's the most challenging part now is synthesis. So organizing all the different mixed bags of demo that I've done in the past, like how can they be ideally one single demo that makes sense and integrate the key parts. And because it's hard, I postpone it. So I don't yet have an answer to that. Of course, anything that's been shown before, being shown either as a video, if it still works, maybe live, I don't mind. But ideally, I would somehow integrate it as one. But yeah, like I said, I don't know yet how to do that properly.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I don't expect we'll be doing much actual VR on the day. But in the same way that I've been screaming for abstracts and bios, it would be really nice if people have a chance to try some of it beforehand, so we have a common starting point. But by the way, this one is yours, right, Brandel? Judging by the URL. Is that currently functional in the headset? It's not on the web, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'll take a look. There could very well be some changes in the program libraries that I haven't kept up with. The
Because
Nairx
I do think it's one of our best demos because it's so simple. Yeah. So what are the comments on what to show? But by the way, if you have a chance and you go to this website, I've added a few things. I've added a gallery where I put up some pictures that I've taken. And it's really, really simple, but the tools to make it are so bizarre. There is, let's do this one. So Brandel and Fabian, just to ask you a very basic question. There,
You dropped out. We heard just
Yeah.
ask you a question, and then I didn't hear anything further.
We don't hear you anymore. At least I don't hear you anymore.
You're muted.
I don't hear you.
Maybe your browser took somehow the microphone because you joined the room with a microphone enabled.
Hang on.
can you hear now?
Yes.
You're back.
So yeah, it's exactly what Fabian said. The room took over the audio. It's really annoying. Anyway, the point is that even just putting a basic picture in right now is not super simple. But I really want to hear what you guys think we should try to show.
Well, from again, an egocentric and maybe even egoistic perspective, my ideal outcome would be to show demos and actually people try them, at least have understanding of the demo to give some feedback like this is bad because of XYZ, try this, or I know this other demo that's much better in that topic, maybe you could inspire of this. And to me, that's the ideal outcome for me. And also from a less egoistic perspective, if people haven't tried either VR or had serious consideration in texting VR and they managed to try either through one of my demo or another one through the headset, and they can manipulate, and that again starts conversation that then push me to build the next prototype. To me, that's the ideal outcome, let's say. So I would rather not just show GIFs or videos, but make people try at least, let's say, one demo, whatever that is.
I'm just trying to find Brandel. I agree with you, Fabian. I'm just trying to find that demo. What was it? Yeah, that was that. Okay, so not on page 1.
I'm useless in answering this question, so that's why I'm quiet.
Also, Jim.
What did you mean?
In terms of what to demonstrate or what to sort of say about it. Well, I mean, the reality is that a number of the sort of the pieces of source material are from you, Bob, and so if there are any observations you have about what the scale of those things does, or if there are any thoughts about opportunities that flow from a digital versions being able to exist at that scale, then it's worth chiming in. But conscious that you haven't had the opportunity to see it yet.
Yeah.
So sorry that I hadn't realized that you were waiting on somebody to get assistance to you. So Andrea didn't turn up.
No. well, it seems to me that this is an issue for a curator rather than a whole group which have not looked at all of these things and don't have the time to do it. That somehow there needs to be some kind of curated or judgmental decision, probably by you, Frode.
That's fine. But I have Brandel and Fabienne here, and I think it is really important because there may be, hang on, I'm just going to paste this. There may be some tweaks that needs to be done, so we can ask those questions. For instance, the mural, Brandel, do you think you'll be able to make it work for both right and left hands?
Oh yeah, that would be very easy. That's the one at Nyrex mural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be trivial to add. I can do that now.
So yeah, I'm just calling this test VR experiences. Okay, so that's one. So we know we want this. So that there is no discussion. Let's just go back on this list and then go through them. It's easy to describe them. I'm going to make sure I'm on the first page. So the gallery, I think, is too simple. Single photo room is basically the same. What is this one? Let's have a look. Oh, this is what you're currently working on, Fabian. If I open it, I'm going to get my audio clipped.
You share the screen so we can see what you're looking at, Frode?
Yeah, sorry. I thought I was. It doesn't actually matter because actually it does. I can't run this one because then I lose microphone again. But Fabian, this is the one that you are working on currently. Do you mind opening it up on your screen and sharing? Because like Mark Anderson asked last time question about the background and stuff. I'm wondering if maybe we can simplify that, or how you want to, if you want, because you have an impressive array of stuff, but it doesn't seem to have been finalized layout yet. Like on the left, you have a column of text, but it's two columns overlaid, kind of, right?
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can now hear you, and we could see the whole time.
Super. So I'll just put this back. It's not going to be finalized. So I can already correct that. It's more of like a tool set, a set of different things that could help and will eventually be useful. But yeah, again, any suggestion, critics or whatnot, happy to try to implement or move things around or try not. But that's the way I see it, like more of a sandbox for us all eventually to tinker with, rather than a final demo. And yes, I am aware of, let's say, the overlap. So I'm happy to show that in some form, because indeed that's the latest thing I've worked on, either include data sets like the timeline or other data sets, which brought me also to why I raised my hand. So I'm not Bob, and I didn't even go through the covers of the books, so I'm not going to presume anything. But not being Bob and not having read the books, if I were to be you, what I would like to have is a mural on the back, let's say, and then that people can grab pieces of text or put some annotation. Again, that's a bit presumptuous of me in the sense that means people viewing the thing would have some feedback somehow, rather than a finalist thing.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is in the process of making mural with a team of people is very likely to have various incomplete or preliminary versions, which people will want to add to, edit, remove, move around, all of those things.
So to go for, let's say, a partial mural, something that's not finalized, maybe a couple of pages of the book on the side in terms of methodology, and then people being able to add text on it without drawing it. It is something that I should be able to show or propose at least for the event.
Uh-huh.
I
Oh,
think-
I see. In the for the book, I was well, that
Please keep
to
sharing.
make a you know, what you're asking is we're making a book the center of a team conversation, not necessarily my book, but any book, and we would want to be able to for example, in the book you're waving around there, I had a limit of pages because of the way printers fold and trim and all that sort of thing. So clearly there are bunches of examples of the concepts portrayed and analyzed in the book that one would want to be able to change, move around, particularly add to, and in some sort of organized or structured fashion, which I haven't figured out, to any degree. I have an idea of where, that would be, that any concept, any major concept, or maybe any concept in the book would be able to have an example added, and then might be able, as I said in my previous book, in the Mapping Hypertext, that we might want hyper trails based on those examples.
I'm wondering, based on that maybe we take Bob's article, it's only 4 pages plus illustrations which are not in, and put the text of that into this environment, Fabienne, as the corpus rather than random text from the book.
So it's definitely technically possible, but what I had in mind was more pages with some visuals, because they look a bit like how to organize the thing, let's say the text or post note in space.
You mean
But what my overall, my overall point was,
what page are you looking at, Fabienne?
I can't remember. I'm not going to be able to find it easily. I did not annotate it yet. But the point is, there are some pages that maybe...
Show me the one. Show me the page, and then if you show the page, you'll find it. All right, sorry.
But the page itself, let's say, is not necessarily what I'm trying to say. Is that to go from what I just showed to couple of pages on the side, a big background, and moving text around is very short and quick. So this is something I can promise, and that I think would be aligned, let's say, with a lot of the discussions we had. And without me, I think all the pieces basically are there. The question is a bit, would it be aligned with the actual methodology of the book? Would for you also, Bob, would it be interesting to hear how people interact with that, or what are the limitations, or is it like so antagonistic to the actual process that it's not even worth trying? But technically speaking, it's something I'm comfortable promising for next week.
Yes, I think it would be. I think it would be interesting to see if anybody came up with some examples. For example, I have a section. I'm looking for the page myself. 125 and following is called the semantic analysis of diagrams. And page 127 to 130 is my preliminary typology of a general typology of diagrams.
Right.
That might be interesting.
So what I'm thinking is, let's say a couple of those So I'll just share my screen very briefly again. But instead of having, and it's not exclusive, like we can have a couple of rooms like this. And instead of having here, example, the table of content of the latest draft, you could have those 6 pages or so you mentioned,
Mhm.
and then a white background or half-made rather mural. And then the main interaction people would be being able to grab some of the text. So not the timeline, but something else.
Yeah.
Or if they have a keyboard, type in, add text, and then move it. Or if you have 2 persons, so I'm going to try, but I'm sure it's going to work, is somebody, and it could be Bob, you, or someone else, typing the text, somebody else in VR that then added the text. Like as if somebody makes a Post-it note and somebody else moves it around. So that's easy.
Mhm.
As
A couple of questions. What is nothing yet? Oh, can you please leave it up, Fabian? It's really useful.
Yeah, sorry. Let me try to put it back. So, and can you repeat also? I didn't understand.
Yes. You have something that says in hard brackets, nothing yet.
So yes, it's because it's the keyboard. So here I'm typing, and if you don't have anything yet, it says nothing yet.
I think it might be more elegant to not say nothing yet, just have the brackets like this, and then the text just expands. Because
Yeah.
it's quite heavy in VR. When you look at it, it's kind of in front of you always.
Yeah.
So the column of text on the left, you have actually 2 overlapping columns there, right?
Yeah.
Can you not make them overlap so that they're more readable?
Yes.
All of this text, is it what they call troika text? Is it actual text?
Yes, it's actual text.
That is hugely impressive. Hugely. So the XJR showing history, that is kind of your working code, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
I think you should probably make it a bit smaller. And I have another thing, since I'm coming out with all these things. Currently, it's very easy to select ABC, to select any single letter. It's actually hugely impressive. Could you easily make it so instead the user selects words or sentences? Because letters aren't as useful.
No, that's much. Yeah, it's something I want to do. So I get what you mean, but for now I don't know how to do this specifically. I started, but definitely not. I mean, maybe for breakthrough, but probably not for next week.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's the kind of stuff we just need to know. So
Yeah.
am I also right in understanding one of the things you want is a more relevant background?
Well, yes. For example, here it would be again if we go back to murals, let's say a half-done mural, something that prompts people to build on it, but not finished, but also not a white page. I think that would be the one of the most interesting thing, and also not probably not something like this, not a full page of normal text, but rather spatial item. I think that would be probably most interesting.
But not in such a way that it interferes with the reading of text.
Yes.
So what is the point of this room is a question we have to ask. The Brandel mural, the point of that room in my mind is quite simply, if people say VR is just another big monitor, fine, come in and realize it is that, but a million times more. Because now that Brandel has made it, I don't know if you remember, Bob, but it's a huge mural, black room, black floor, nothing's there. All you can do, you can't even move yourself because of the motion sickness, but you take your hand, and if you make a pinch, even though you aren't touching it, you're connected to it. So now you can move it towards you or away from you and move it around. That ability is absolutely mind-blowing. It means that this incredibly huge thing, because Brandel has written in a very optimized way, to put it simply, it's so smooth and fast. It's not like jerky on a screen. It's just where you want gone, where you want gone. So that the reason for that is clear. So when we're now looking at Fabien's actual real text in layers, and it comes from something, what is the effect we want it to have on the visitor? expecting the visitor not to be an old hand at VR, because then they will know this stuff.
The question is for me here.
All of you, but particularly you, Fabian, absolutely.
I don't think actually even people who are familiar with VR are not necessarily used to adding, manipulating text or even coding in VR, or mixing the manipulation of items in space with coding. So I don't think it's necessarily that boring for even experts.
Yeah.
But I mean, the goal for me here is to say you can have a toolbox, just like you have a screwdriver and a hammer and whatnot, but specialize, and that toolbox itself, you can edit it while you are in VR. That's, I guess, the main point.
I think something we should spend some time on right now, unless someone violently disagrees, is you write that down, Fabian, what you just said. And we edit it together to make sure it's perfectly simple. And you put it in that environment. So when you put your headset on, there will be all these things. And there's literally a welcome text, right?
Yes, yes, and that was kind of the plan. And the big X or the text at the beginning, that's a lot in your face. That's supposed to be there for that, but it's not clear yet. But yes, I agree. Especially, let's say, even for myself, again, egoistically, if I come back 3 months later and I have those walls of text and comments, even for me, it's like too much. So yeah, I'll do so.
Fantastic. I mean, this is one of the big things I'm left with from Annie's book, The Extended Mind, and that is this thing of, if you have an argument that you've made, or if you have an artifact or technology you've made, your brain is optimized to present it and sell it and push it, promote it, defend it, but the rest of us don't. So that is why it's so great, Fabian, to be able to have this discussion. Okay. Shall we wait for Fabian, or should we have a look at something else? What's the best use of our time? Because obviously we need to come back and put in what he said.
Don't wait for me.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through the list of our available resources. One thing that I learned that was very useful is that the globe test that I did is completely useless. So academically, it's interesting, but it doesn't give you a sense of being floating above the earth at all. That's a much more tricky thing to do. So no, not to show.
Is it monoscopic?
I don't
Is it
think that, well, you're more than 200 meters away, so the stereo kind of goes anyway. What I edited down, I did a sphere. I also did just a circle. I did many different versions, but it seems to be that it needs to have a really, really good original globe thing. And, you know, the way that it was balanced to having the stars in the background and so on, it became instructional. It never became alive. And I think that's okay. It may just be the rendering engines right now. Yeah. So then we have this one, where you have the these two, Fabian, not Fabian. I'm sorry, Brandel. Where are you? Where are we? Future text here. I'm just going to copy the book onto the desktop. This is where you did the P-lists, excuse me, not P-list, JSON stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the state of that today?
It probably works. You need to open it in Chrome because Safari doesn't interpret bundle files correctly. So I think you can actually throw the entire, throw the entire book on it in Chrome.
You sound like a lawyer.
I'll
throw the book at him.
That's right.
What did I do? I was being completely silly. Okay.
Okay, so
there we go.
That's the one, yeah.
Wow.
There you go, yeah.
Okay. I have requests. I mean, this is, Mark Anderson and I spent 2.5 hours yesterday working on this nonsense. And that is why it has all these things at the top. They are to indicate what it's like to have tags, but we moved away from that. So I can give you a cleaner concept map than this. But I think to make it useful in a VR experience, please tell me whether my requests are ridiculous or not. One is quite simply to make the text blocks smaller.
That's totally fine.
Okay, cool. And another one is this black on gray isn't amazing. How can we improve that? Should we have a gradated background, or should we have an image background, or should we all have everything black? What do you think?
We could put it on. We could take the black card off, or we could. Let's see. It is related to the width of the tag, isn't it? Because it's narrower for narrow things. I mean, one of the things is that the vertical padding is not in line with the horizontal thing. There's also a little bit of Z separation, so you know, that they would look a little bit better there if they were like that. They could be rounded. That might help. Where do I get to my?
What are the interactions you have active for this in VR?
I think if you pinch on a thing, then you see the connections, so that you highlight them. Where do I see? Oh, a dashboard. Yeah, so I could make the background color of those cards the same color as the background, and so then you'd only see their impact. Impact, I think, is that the lines all turn up behind those cards, such that the lines don't obscure the view of the individual pieces of text from memory. And that's kind of useful.
Okay, so you all saw this kind of graphy thing, right? And considering obviously different companies are working on it and all of that. Let me just explain the logic of this, see if you think it's relevant or not. The idea so far is basically, you know, you click on someone and then you get this kind of information. Do you also show this, by the way? No, you can't.
I don't recall if it shows the specific relation. I think it might, but I'm not sure. So
Why do you want to have all these lines instead of if you're trying to build something that would be useful for people? Would prefer that, at least this person here would prefer to have, if you're going to collect all the names, the labels like US and person and all that sort of thing, just to make a list. Bulleted list would be much better than trying to have my eye scan all over the place in order just to connect it. But that's just one. That's only one data point. You know, I don't know what other people think about this.
I have nothing against lists, but you know, I'm sitting next to a book here with a huge amount of spatial hypertext written by you. So I find that an odd comment, because the idea here is that the user, while building this, they chunk things so they can learn. Like here are some of the key things that people say they're interested in: VR, AI, spatial computing, and so on. And then you can see who that is. The center is people. These are the technologies. So you can see who is working on.
Who are these they people? Because I've just given you one person. Maybe I'm not one of the they people.
Okay, fine. All right. I'll have this discussion when the hour is up, so you don't need to be horrified by the fact that I'm not just using lists. Bob, you can be quite aggressive. You know, it's not always necessary.
It's right, and you can be extremely defensive instead of collecting data. I've
Bob,
just offered a piece of data. And if that's not what you want, that's fine. I will stop offering data.
I mean, no,
Well,
no,
the way I learned to accept data was to accept data. Say thank you very much. We'll put that into our thoughts about how we design this.
right. I'm
All
sure
right.
that, well, if you have an interview panel, I'm sure that's a very political way to point out, but I really don't know how to respond to that. You know, why can't we just have lists? You've written a series of books, for crying out loud, on diagrams. I'm trying to give people a diagram. You're saying it's rubbish. There's been too many arguments like this.
No, you're overgeneralizing about diagrams and what I said about diagrams and what I've said about lists. And when I've used lists, when I have used other things like networks, there are very good judgmental calls on that. And one of the ways that one finds out about that is to obtain data.
Data, you can call things data, Bob, but I mean, seriously, you were saying, why not just have a list? Okay, lists are fine. There are lists as well, right? I tried to explain what we're doing with this. I have shown before that this is exported as a glossary. It's a connected glossary. Interact with it in a different way, right? But at this point, just like people putting Post-its on a wall to think, you know, this is just one way of doing that. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, right? But we've just gone through one good way to show a mural. You know, we don't have that much time. I'm just looking at one good way to show a basic kind of a graph thing. And, you know, trying to explain why. A graph isn't useful for everything, of course not. Just like, you know, ideally we should have other views. We should have timeline views that we talked about and lots of other things too. And of course, I think we agree very strongly here that a curated mural for this kind of information is really important too. But why would I say to you, Bob, why make a mural? Why not just write a book? You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a data. It's a bit aggressive, don't you think?
Yes, I'm often aggressive, and I also had also said it wasn't the list conclusion was one possible other display mode of that information, but I found that that having to run my eye all over the place whenever I clicked on you, or rather you clicked on somebody, was a distraction if I was actually trying to find out what information, you know, there was there for that person. For me, it would be a list. That was my only other alternative that I could think of at the moment. Anyway, I have to leave now. It's after 9. Sorry.
If you click for the definition, you get all the text here, and it would be nice if it was listed, but the one I have from you is quite a lot of stuff to read. But okay,
Frode,
yeah,
let me kind of offer some perspective. I wish Bob were still here, but it seems to me that what you're suggesting with what I would call dynamic lists is that you can shift from list to list to list very quickly, given your diagram, and the lines are, as Bob says, a little confusing, but that's one of the problems with a lot of benefits. The fact that you can shift from list to list to list within the context of the glossary, to me, is wonderful, because it's an holistic point of view.
yeah.
And a separate list, as Bob was implying, is not a holistic point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are benefits to having a structural similarity between the different views, which it's kind of, for some reason, it makes me think of a pinball table, and the fact that a pinball table retains its spatial arrangement at all times. You know, nothing actually moves around unless it's a very fancy one. But what happens is the different parts of the table light up when it's in different modes, and that changes the state of the play of the board entirely. And so, in that same way, having a fixed layout, but with the ability for different things to be highlighted and linked, it gives you the ability to kind of read what happens to the sort of the state of the board as a consequence of highlighting this versus that. And so that you can begin to develop a sense of the commonalities of those state changes as you sort of navigate across them. And a crucial point of distinction that Bob sort of raised just before he left was that it wasn't when he clicked on it, it was when you clicked on it. And the sense of agency, the ability to reflexively sort of alter the state in a safe and recoverable manner by clicking on this and then clicking on this. You can't get lost because it's a sort of a trivially shallow set of interactions where you get that by clicking on that, you get that by clicking on that. These are beneficial because it means that nobody has to do any cognitive work to prepare the task of generating a view. Whereas, you know, if you're in Excel or if you're sorting by or doing these other slightly more complicated things, then there's constantly this anxiety about like, what if I break the view that I have such that I won't understand the things or how to get back to it? And so there are just manifest benefits to having sort of a shallow capacity to change what things are, but in a predictable manner, because it means that your ability to read it becomes commingled with your ability to affect those minor manipulations. Way that means that you can just change it in the same way that a lot of people click and drag to select over text as they are reading it. It's actually known in the industry, and a number of people build analytics tools in order to sort of exploit that fact. But yeah, like it means that reading has the ability to become active in a way that it wouldn't otherwise, and that no static sort of arrangement of that text would be able to sustain that capacity either.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair point. And this is something that I generally get with older people, including Ted Nelson, when showing him it is the highlighting of the lack of agency. You know, hang on, what did you do? How did that change? Yes, I get that. Of course, with younger people too, but they're more used to doing it themselves. But it is something that I've experienced quite a few times. I get that. And it is also very, very important to look at different views. I mean, Doug Engelbart was a big proponent of what he called view specs. And just like you said, Randall, there should be some coherence between the different views of the same data. That's the whole thing we're trying to deal with here. What I have a problem with is Bob has a huge amount of passion. You know, he really puts a lot of work and effort into our community. You know, he sends thoughtful emails. It's just a bit difficult when he comes with a sentence like, why are you doing what you spent the last 10 years building? You should have a list. You know, just out of context and a little angry. I have an issue with that, and I'm going to have a talk with him because he's clearly a nice guy. I know this is recorded. I'm not talking behind his back. I'll say this. Just if we look a little bit at the tone, that's all. You know.
Yeah. Well, I understand that motivation. I mean, I think one of the things he's conscious of is that there's a taxonomy of tools, and they have appropriate for different sort of domains. And if something seems like it initially is better suited to a simple list, which it may be if you're trying to peruse one specific person, because the thing is that also the kind of information you get out of a map like this by virtue of clicking on one person versus clicking on another is actually relatively superficial. So having a short bio does a different job, but you know, and perhaps he feels like that's a necessary job to do first before being able to delve into this connectedness kind of tangle of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, you know, one thing we learn every once in a while is that we are indeed passionate about this. Right. So kind of back to the not drawing board, but back to what we're going to try to show, just trying to find the right tab. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Brandel, I for this room, obviously there are other things, but I want, for me, at some point, I obviously want to have author and VR, no question. But this is kind of a cheeky hack. So it's just a matter of making sure it looks really, really cool. And I think one of the things we can do is just make the text smaller, and then either make the background transparent because it's dark behind anyway, or actually that's enough, right? Anyone else have any specific thoughts about that? Because when I noticed the first time Brandel built it, there was a kind of a bug where you would enter inside it. You have to step back, but now he's fixed that. So it's about a meter or so in front of you, which is great. But if the text is smaller, then it'll probably appear more spacious. You know, you can go a bit closer to look at things. I think a few cosmetics like that can really make this yet another layer of explaining to people what we're doing. Jim, by the way, how far away from Bob do you live? You said you see him maybe once a week or every 2 weeks or something. Is that right?
It's probably more like once a month. I last saw him on his birthday, the 29th or the 24th of August. But I've suggested that I go up on Wednesday, 2 days hence.
Yeah, because I think you could set it up for him. Because I know that you don't use a Quest at the moment, but it's actually quite straightforward. You know,
Well, maybe together we could do it.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. And it would be really, really great if you also experienced it too.
The literal answer to your question is 30.2 miles, but that's not the real intent of your question.
So where do you live then?
Menlo Park,
You lucky
30
bastard.
miles south,
Yeah, the
near,
golden.
near Stanford and the north edge of Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, no, I know exactly where it is. That's why I muttered "you lucky bastard." It's beautiful there, and of course it's the just the crown of the tech. Brandel, should I go in and have a look? Have you made changes? Or are you going to do it?
Yeah. I have. It's a little smaller. I actually don't have any author files now. If you could send me an author file, then I can. Or is it on one of our emails? Because this is a new computer since I changed jobs, so I don't have any of that stuff.
Putting it in drop. Hang on. How small is it? Yeah, it's 300. I'm going to email it to you. Yeah, it's only 308 kilobytes. So
Cool.
The rest of you, what do you want to do while we look at this? I don't want you to just be bored out of your skull looking at people's non-faces. You want to maybe go to the category and look at what else to show, or I don't know, whatever. Just getting a bit stressed about having stuff to show. Okay, here we go. Wait. Jim, when is the last time you were in any kind of a VR environment? Have you tried the Quest ever?
Probably 4 or 5 years ago at the Rumsey Map Center at Stanford. So it was a very early on, and I was probably in it for only a minute or two. So almost never.
Okay. Yeah, you have to experience this.
I'd love to. What's the general price point of the tool?
That particular thing is $400. It's very likely to drop in price next month because because Facebook Meta is going to be releasing a successor to it, and it's very likely that that'll sort of push their incumbent versions down a little bit. Okay.
But even $400 is kind of a reasonable. I was wondering, is it priced in hundreds or thousands? And the good news is it's hundreds.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm jumping around and dumping this thing in several times to take a look at it just while I'm tweaking some of these numbers. So I'm afraid that it might be a little bit freaky to you. But yeah, no. So this thing is very much entry level. It's really relievingly priced. I believe Facebook is taking a little bit of a hit on it, and it's likely that as the sort of position changes in the market for people, it might get a little bit pricier, but yeah, it's okay at the moment. I wanted to change that. I guess I don't really need that color. Okay.
It is very impressive just looking at it here, just having the space to look. It's literally for me right now, it's a monitor this size. And okay, so now it follows my head, so that's not a good thing.
No, it's stuck.
Yeah, you're tweaking things, which is good. Right. So I just have to make sure I copy the right URLs in.
Mhm.
I'm calling this is currently called Liquid Quest. I'm going to call this basic graph view. Basic author map. And what, Fabienne, should we call your current work in this?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay. So I'm going to think of a name then.
What does it do?
It's a toolbox that can edit itself.
Toolbox of what?
Text snippets.
Have you written the little snippet that's going to be in there, by the way?
It's in there.
Okay. I'm going to give you this URL in a minute, guys.
I'm shaking my head in amazement at the phrase, a tool that can edit itself. That's mind-blowing.
Thank you for saying what we're all feeling. Yes.
Should load. Oh no, this must be HTTP.
Okay, so on the symposium website, on the futureoftext.org, there's now a link at the very top, white text, why VR and AI, and then VR experiences next to it. So you should feel free to click and tell me what to put on there. Obviously, I'll give, I can share the link. I'm sorry, that was not very clever of me. Boom, okay.
If I may, it's I put it in the chat a bit earlier, but I think, well, first this conversation is great because it does push us, let's say, to what do we actually show. and clarify, and including difficult question like an actual what is it for, and the name. But I think also that also from the question of like how do we handle this feedback? How do we give feedback? Because for some people it's very uninteresting. Sometimes the feedback is like very like too deep details and everything. It's not necessarily bad feedback, but it's yeah, we can endlessly correct some things without touching, let's say, the core of the idea. So I'm wondering, how are we supposed to do this right so that it's, let's say, both inclusive and efficient? And I don't know. It's really a question.
Okay,
Maybe.
so I've written here on this page. Have you all had a chance to follow the link, by the way? I'll give you the direct link as well. Because just thinking about what Fabian just said. Right. So here, Brandel, for the map thing,
Mhm.
can we do it so I give you one that will always work on this page, we lock it? Or maybe I put it on a Dropbox or something so I can update it without you having to be involved every time.
Yeah, you could drop it in to have it preload. It's actually not working on my Quest for the moment, and I'm not sure why. So I don't know what I'm not saying here. Oh, it did load there. Oh. Sorry, I was just debugging. So you're asking for additional commentary on these things?
Yeah, I have, hang on, so many browsers open, 1 second. I had a page here on intro to VR experience that we've written before. And it has to enter, click the above link and wait for Mozilla Hubs to load. Once this is done, you can choose blah, blah, blah. We don't need that, right? I mean, if people have a headset, they should know how to go to a web experience. Do we agree? That would just be clutter. This was mostly written for Vint, so never got to try it. But trust me, for dinner next week, he will. Just adding. I think I'm also adding a simple Linnaean thing we tested around with.
Oh, sure.
Are you trying to
Folding
fix?
and things.
Do you think you're trying to fix the issue now, or do you want to do that later, Brandel, for what's not working?
With the book, with the map of the author document, I'll take a look at that later. I'm still I'll need to take a look at. So I think there's an issue with the hiding.
Okay, I'll obviously be able to give you something. Are we all meeting on Friday? Everybody okay coming on Friday? Because that's our last session, really. We'll have a basic one on Monday, but that's like rush. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll actually be in London by then.
That's just very awesome.
So
Oh, both of you by then. Okay, that's really, really good. Yeah, well, we'll meet up as soon as it's convenient for you guys. There are many things to do here, and of course, I want to see you. So just ping, as we say. This is all we have on this page, by the way, now. And I think because yours is very complicated in a good way, Fabian, if you give me that description here as well as what's in there, we can give people a bit of a clue about what happens before they go in. What do you think?
yeah, I need to figure it out myself.
Yeah. That's the hard part. By the way, did any of you watch any of the funeral proceedings here today? It's worth watching. Obviously for you, it wasn't convenient time-wise, but it's worth going through because it's both so arcane and weird and arbitrary and also very, very human. You know, just, you know, seeing these guards standing like this, like, you know, in a painting, but no, they're breathing, they're looking over there, you know, things like that. It was quite a thing. And of course, living in the city is like, oh my God, now they're doing the thing where we did the thing, and very, very odd. So anyway, I hope you can all be here for the coronation of our king next year.
Oh, that'll be next year. Yeah,
No.
that will be weird.
Oh, yeah. Fabian, not a monarchist. I'm not a monarch.
I think
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, particularly in, well, I mean, it's not a colony, but particularly, so I'm from 3 colonial countries. I'm from Jamaica, Canada, and New Zealand, and I don't see, and obviously the king or queen is the head of state for all of those countries, and I just don't see it being worthwhile for people to continue on with the tradition at this point. I think I think a lot of countries will secede from the Commonwealth because it's not particularly relevant.
Yeah, I completely disagree with you, but I think we disagree and agree on very interesting different angles, and I think it's actually very much related to the work in our community, because this whole thing of by accident of birth, they have all these good things. I would like us all to have that. You know, here we have a National Health Service. That's by accident of birth. We weren't born in another country. That is an incredible privilege. You know, that's one thing that I'd rather we aspire up than have them torn down in a way. And also the whole thing of service. I mean, how boring must it be to be king? It's not like, you can say, I'm going to do this today, like in the olden days where they had power. The way that I tried to explain it to my foreign friends when there was a big emotion was like, imagine maybe for you Americans, if the American flag was no longer allowed to be used. You know, it's literally about symbolism. The Queen was nothing, but at the same time, she held so much together. And I find that really, really fascinating, because when it comes to religion, I don't really care if there's a God up there, but I think it's an okay idea to feel that things are holy. So that's why I like the notion of something that unites. And ideally, the more people, the better. So, it's kind of interesting where it's almost like we semantically disagree, because I think all of us here, we want better for people. We want better connections, and we don't want rubbish, right? So I think it's a really interesting discussion, actually.
The fact that you are really currently from two different nations, I think doubles the impact of your commentary. Do you view yourself as British or Norwegian or a citizen of the world or all of the above?
I used to view myself proudly, quote unquote, as citizen of the world, having grown up in Norway, Singapore, the US, and the UK. But I was really shocked when the Queen died. I remember serving dinner with, and Katja was next to me, and I said, did you know tonight the Queen will die? You know, I said it with a certainty, which I don't know where that came from. And she did. And it was very, very odd. The first thing I wanted to do, I did actually consider, okay, I need to change passport to be British. But my native tongue is Norwegian. So we all have different ways where our identity flows from. And for me, I have to admit, it's a large part of it is language. But I want to support Prince Charles. I want to be there at his coronation because he's a good guy. And more than that, he's an environmentalist, which I think is hugely important. To have a figurehead who can do almost nothing, but he gives a monkeys about the long term, because that's the other thing. Here in the UK, we have a House of Commons and a House of Lords. Some of the Lords are horrible people, but many of them who cannot be re-elected or anything or be kicked out, they're a real stabilizing force. So I think those things are good. We'll see. Not that it matters at all. Not that it matters at all. Fabian, you owe me text. In this community, it's the most sacred thing you can owe me. The description.
Of what?
Of what people will also see when they go into your environment of self-editing VR tool.
How long?
I mean, if you want, you can dictate it to me.
I'll type it, but you want like a paragraph, a line, a page?
Let's do it this way. So in this environment, you will see, okay, what will they see?
No, but so they don't say, you'll be able to directly manipulate text and add text and execute that text to modify the virtual environment you're in. you'll be able to combine commands to change that event more efficiently.
I have a simple one. Reload that page if you have it already. The beginning of what you said was perfect. I'll give it to you in chat. So what do you think of that?
Sure, it's a simpler start.
But is that enough? Is there something else you feel people need to know before they go in? I mean, how do you execute the code? That's probably worth knowing.
Pinching a snippet of.
I can't hear you. The voice comes in and out. Do you mind typing that, please? And I'll paste it in. Oh, okay. Thank you.
One thing that I want to highlight, and ideally that would be self-evident, it's like I said, it's a toolbox, but it should be a scaffolding. Like every time it should become easier to use, more efficient. Yeah, that's why it's a bit, let's say, raw, or it's not hidden, is because I think the scaffolding itself is interesting. That's why it's not like, I don't know, like a golfing game or something that looks finished. I think there is beauty in the rawness of the scaffold.
Can you write that? You are writing a piece and presenting, right?
Yes.
Can you make this an abstract and give it to me today, please? What the additional stuff? Because will you be presenting this, or will you be presenting something else?
I'll be presenting this, but in, I guess, a more abstract fashion by saying, yeah, it's an interface, like VR is an interface, and I think being able to manipulate interfaces is extremely powerful and interesting. So something a little bit, but that will be illustrated hopefully this way.
Right. Looking at our document here. So Brandel, you're not contributing directly. I understand why. Hope Ellen will. Just going through. Yeah, I'm going to remove you out of this. Unless you choose that there's something that you think is appropriate, but obviously politics are important. All right, very good. Okay. What else do you guys feel is important to discuss for the symposium?
So maybe I missed it, but in terms of feedback again, how are we going to do it? Are people going to, how do we capture it? Do people just talk? Do we open GitHub issues, or have no idea how we're supposed to do this?
Are you talking about feedback from people using the VR environments?
Yes, or even, let's say, if we do a presentation, and again, because to me that's the most precious.
The way the symposium will run is you do a presentation that's maybe 10 minutes, and then 10-minute dialogue. In total, each person has 20 minutes, and I will literally grab the mic. The transcript will be of the presentation plus the Q&A. So the Q&A will be in the book properly. There will, of course, be some screenshots. I really hope, and this is thanks to you, Jim, there will be good abstracts or even single sentence summaries to help people go through. After this has been done, I'm going to send the PDF to all the presenters, who will then have opportunity to either think about what they've seen or read what others have written, and then write a comment that they can choose to have in the book. Either they will say, you know, after this day, I have learned, or I have questions, or I can say what I saw that so-and-so did was phenomenal and must be used like this, that kind of stuff. So that's one kind of feedback. It's designed to be in the book. The book needs to be published this year, but, you know, we're self-publishing, so it doesn't really matter exactly when. We don't have to worry too much about deadlines. When it comes to feedback from VR, please tell me what you think we should do. Should we ask them to do it as articles, emails, or maybe even tweets? What makes most sense? It's a good question, and I'm sorry that I didn't properly stick with it.
Yeah, to me, the ideal scenario is like feedback that can be like implemented on the spot. Let's say you told me about the title and I had it right there, but that's unrealistic for most of it. So I'm not sure how it should be done. If
should I put your Twitter handles on this? And when I send it to people tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to scream even more for the bios and the abstracts, I will say, here's the VR page. Please come and try. And each item has the feedback for, you know, the Twitter handles. You can tweet your reply or have a direct message or whatever you choose. Is that a good way of doing it?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's really understandable. Let's say it's understandable, I hope, for you now, but we've been discussing and trying stuff for months now. So I think somebody who would come at it right away, I think that would just be probably pretty hard to digest, if not making absolutely no sense. So I'm not sure. I mean, for sure, you can definitely put my Twitter handle anywhere or my contact information. I don't mind, but I don't know how much trying beforehand this kind of experience would help people. It's very experimental.
Yeah, so I'm just doing that. So what do you think we should do then?
I'm okay if people just try it there in the space on the day.
Okay. So I will say, okay, on this page, VR experiences, blah, blah, blah. I should say something about feedback, right? Please give feedback on the day, or click on the names below to, okay, hang on, let me just write it.
Yeah, but that feedback is appreciating any time, even before the event or during the event. And maybe not being afraid of or worried of asking clarification because everything is experimental. Like, I mean, I know it's the lab and people know it, but still, I think it's okay to ask. Yeah, it's a cube. I don't know why it's good to have a cube or anything like this.
Okay, I've edited that page. Please tell me what you think. Peter and Jim, what do you think of the page now?
I don't see it.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to give it to you in chat again. There you go.
I'm having trouble copying it and pasting it. When I
Yep.
when I tried to bring up the 3 URLs that were in the site, within the site you gave, the Future of Text site, I could only access the third of the 3 for some reason. And I assume it was something I was doing, not something you had done, so.
And the messages in here in Zoom. But by the way, Jim, you're quite quiet. I'm not sure why that is.
Because I'm technically naive and I'm listening to people who are much more sophisticated than I am. So it's both courtesy and honesty.
Right. But you
Oh,
can,
it's just the literal volume of your speech at this point is a little bit lower than it was previously in the call.
Huh. I have no idea.
But I appreciate the admission of humility. We all have our areas of expertise, and I'm very eager to be able to get this kind of virtual reality sort of discussion to a point where your architectural acumen is actually even worth calling on.
It arises in different places.
That's right.
right. So, yeah.
By the way, also a very practical question. So we'll do the 10-minute presentation, 10 minutes Q&A. You take the mic, everything is recorded, or at least transcribed after and put in the book. But then maybe I misunderstood also the demos or the link now, you're going to share them to participants soon.
Yes.
But will there be a space with a couple of headsets that people will try, or will it be only presentation with Q&A?
That's not a bad idea. I hadn't really thought of that. So on the day, I'll just show you the calendar. There's nothing on it anyway for that week. But so what I have so far is, you know, coffee introduction, first session, coffee, second lunch, la la la. And then at 5 o'clock, we have a tour, a physical tour. So we could have a session, or we could have longer coffee breaks with the express intention that is where you have some headsets. We'll bring a few in, those who have one bring in. because Vint is going to be here on the first day, not on the second day. So the second day is a bit more casual, and I'm hoping it would be inspired by the first day. We'll have much more free flowing discussion, not a straight dialogue. But yeah, let's build that in. Maybe even the first session should be headsets. We literally spend an hour on that. What do you think? Would that be a good use of our time?
Yes, because I think if somebody were to talk, to listen about VR without actually having tried it, it's complete waste of time for them. And those might have extremely valuable feedback, expertise, etc. So I was assuming, I asked this very naively because I was assuming there would be like a demo corner with actual headset or workshop or whatnot. So presentation for sure, but if there was a way indeed, and indeed maybe at the start to play with Tinkerwith, because it all sounds too.
You've sold me. Can you bring a headset? And Brandel, can you bring a headset?
Yeah, I was planning to.
I only have a
need
+1, but I will bringing it. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll ask Mark to bring his. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 demos. So I think we should have 1 per headset. So people don't reload or click URLs or whatever. Put it on, click enter. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to text Mark right now.
Yeah, and we don't need like dozens of headsets because we need to man them. We need people to explain, gather feedback, keep them charged, all that. So if we have too many, it becomes a mess.
Yes.
So
Also, I haven't really pushed this to the general public yet, because I think it's really important that people who are there are involved, and we don't want lots of just general questions. So I only expect about 20 people to be there, which is very good for the kind of things you're talking about now. Mr. Wasilko.
Yeah, some groups have the idea of something called random coffee trials. I don't know if you ever heard of that. But the idea is that for people who are participating in a conference, they'll arrange for them to do individual one-on-one Zoom meetups at some later date. And it might be kind of nice if we could have a page where people could register for something along those lines.
Well, we do have this community. Sorry, I'll be back in 1 second.
yeah, I did not know the name, but I had similar experience in the past with like random round tables and
Exactly.
that was pretty nice icebreaker or ways to have unexpected conversation. So yeah, I would definitely appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to have to bounce in about 5 minutes to get signed in for an architecture lecture starting at 1.
Enjoy it, Peter.
Yeah, it should be good.
Who's getting
Last
it?
week's sessions were all about the future of cities, which was very interesting. So we'll see how this week goes. It's a whole series of talks over a multi-week period. So
The future cities is something I'm especially interested, given my long time ago background.
well, it's the Architizer Future Fest conference, and you could even sign up now to watch recordings of last week's talks if you're interested.
Architizer Future Conference?
Architizer Future Fest.
I'll see what it is.
I'm back. I'm just
Okay, very
closing
good.
windows.
Thanks, Peter.
Oh, my pleasure. They're really fascinating talks. And they have a neat website and a newsletter that they push out, all sorts of really goldmine links in there.
Is the website Architecture Future Fest?
Architizer.
TIZER.
Jim,
all
you're
one
still
word.
really quiet, by the way. But we can kind of hear you, but is there a button maybe or volume on your input maybe somehow?
Quick anecdote. Why I find it hard to name a demo, even describe it, is because it forces me to notice the gap between what I initially hoped it would do and what it actually does. So I'm not shy about it, but it's tricky.
Yes, but there's nothing wrong with you writing down the intention or the goal versus what it is. You know, that's the community.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to drop the link into the chat. Hang on 1 second. And there's a schedule for the conference series, and you'll be able to register for that and view last week's talks if there are any that you're interested in.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. And I'm going to have to jump now to get over to that conference.
Okay,
So talk
Take care.
Friday.
Cool.
Have a good week, guys.
That other thing should work now. I was able to get it all pinching on all of the different documents. But I'll keep sort of jabbing at it until it's a little bit more shipshape. But for some reason, this larger document threw a lot of errors, and I haven't worked out why I get those errors, but I've managed to make it recover safely through them.
oh, that's useful. I'm just changing something on our page here. I realized that Hubs makes really stupid sounding temporary names, so hiding the URLs.
It does, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm just checking our links.
Oh, another silly technical detail question is if, or rather as we do demo at the beginning, if the host could have a couple of screens or TV or something to cast what we do, I think especially for newcomer, put a black headset when you don't know what's in. If you've never tried VR, it's a bit scary. So if there was some way to do some mirroring, if not, maybe us bring our own laptops, that would also help.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, maybe, Fabian. There's also the other thing of, you know, they move so much. I mean, I think that this thing that shocked me when I put on the Quest was simply how stable the world is. I find that absolutely so incredible. So if people just go in and feel, okay, this is real and there's stuff here, job done. I really think that's the first thing. You know, it wakes them up to the reality of it. But yeah, I don't know. Emily pointing out that there's people in the house. So the URLs were correct. Also on this page, Fabian Brandel, if you want to look at what we have, and if you want to offer any commentary to any other people, like for the little thing that I did or for each other, that's of course not a bad idea.
Sure. No, I'm happy to do that. Sorry, when I got into debugging mode, I sort of stopped being able to contribute intellectually.
Yeah. Okay, I think this is fantastic, guys, by the way.
Quick thing also, since initially the starting with demo was not expected, maybe saying it in the email so that people who feel that they don't have a VR headset or they are scared still of it, they will have the opportunity anyway on the day so that they don't feel pressured and then have a terrible experience, or that maybe that would help.
I was writing during that. I'm so sorry. That was rude. Could you please repeat?
No, just saying that if people can try the demo now,
Yeah.
they sure should and give feedback. But if they can't, not to worry, because we would try our best to also provide them in the morning of the first before the first
Yeah, that's not
and
a
because
bad
for this, especially again for the weird stuff, for the thing that unclear, knowing that the people who did it will be there, I think that's a lot more encouraging. It's like, oh, it's weird, but they'll be there, so I can give feedback, criticize, or help them. So I think that, yeah, it's better.
I'm going to write that on here as well. Okay, so let me just share a screen in our last few minutes here, make sure we're all on the same page, quite literally. The symposium will start with how much time are we going to need? An hour, maybe.
Sure.
And we're going to invite people to bring their own headsets if they have something of their own VR work to show people. I guess they could, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I
definitely.
think the more the merrier. People have things. I mean, it's so frequently the case that they'll have their own setups actually working a little bit more robustly than being able to drop a random URL. But the benefit of WebXR is that hopefully it's relatively universal, but that's rarely the case, as we've discovered time and time again. That works for me. I see Jim also signed off. He waved, but he was muted, so we didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I also have to start my actual workday in order to sing for my supper. This
And
has
I'm
been
going to
good.
have
Good
supper, but I
reminder
don't.
of.
I was just going to joke that it's my turn for supper. There won't be any singing, I
Yes,
hope.
indeed.
Right. When are
Yeah.
you coming? This weekend, guys, or when?
I'm flying my Thursday, so I'll be landing in Heathrow 7 a.m. Friday morning.
Send me your details and I'll pick you up.
Oh, lovely! Thank you. Yes, I'll do that.
Okay.
That's really
wonderful.
kind.
No, it'll be exciting. Good reason to wake up early.
Indeed,
Fabian, when are you
indeed.
coming?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll take a bit through immigration, I'm sure, but yeah, we'll be.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just, I'll look it up. There's the Google for all of that stuff, so it'll be fine. Yeah, just.
Thank you. Yeah,
like
and our check-in is until 3, but we can leave our bags there and stuff like that and everything. So.
Cool. Excellent. Where are you staying?
The Radisson. It's near-ish Glass House and the Linnean Society and things.
Cool. And Fabian, when are you arriving?
I won't tell you because I'm arriving with my better half and the daughter, and it's not work related. So I'll tell you, I think on Monday or Tuesday. But I'll be around. Maybe we'll bump into each other randomly.
I'm sure we will. Look forward to it. Okay, there's overflowing people coming here for some reason. So I'm going to have to deal with that. Look forward to an email, Brandel. See you guys
Indeed.
in a week. Bye.
Yes. Yeah.
Take care.